Commissioner of Police James Sutton of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force said several initiatives are being used to curb the spike in violent gun crimes being experienced in the Federation. Commissioner Sutton said the St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force is already working with the police force and regional and international assistance are being pursued.
We have already put in motion several initiatives and strategies aimed at increasing efficacy of our methods and the intensity with which we seek justice. One such course of action was the High Command's decision to increase mobile and foot patrols and community engagement nationwide. This change has been met with much appreciation from the general public, as dozens of persons all over the country continue to express sentiments of gratitude and appreciation to the patrolling officers. The police force has sought the assistance of Dr. Edwin Powell, a highly trained national security specialist from the United States. Dr. Powell is no stranger to us, as he was previously in the Federation just this past April. Another course of action we seek to take is the utilization of Section 10 of the Island Constables Act. This permits the police force to temporarily enlist former law enforcement personnel to assist in our peacekeeping endeavors in extreme circumstances or emergencies. The High Command has also taken the decision to upgrade our information reward system. As of yesterday's date, any person or persons who provides police with information that leads to the arrest and conviction of criminal elements is eligible to receive a monetary reward of up to $25,000. As of yesterday, June 6, 2023, all vacation and personal days for police officers have been suspended. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force will not rest, hesitate, or falter in the pursuit of peace and justice.
The Commissioner called on the communities for their support to willingly provide information and to play their part in fighting the current upsurge in gun-related crimes. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline. Leader of the People's Labour Party and the former Prime Minister of the Team Unity administration criticized Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew and his SKN Labour Party administration over the spike in violent gun crimes in the Federation. In an address, Dr. Harris said Dr. Terence Drew's administration is, quote, failing miserably in keeping our people safe, unquote, while saying the police seem unable to assure the public of its ability to deal with the escalation of gun violence.
We are going backwards in our maintenance of law and order. We were once there. We also cannot forget that prudent leadership, the innovative programs such as the Peace Program, moral boosting initiatives, our island-wide CCTV build-out, our modern forensic lab, our strong support for law enforcement, etc., over the last 7 years, prior to August 5, 2022, some murders reduced to historic lows, lives saved, and a tangible sense of security and peace return to our collective benefit. The incompetence of the current regime and its undermining of public confidence in the agencies of law and order have reversed our hard-won gains. The silence of the cabinet has been deafening and unsettling. The members of the cabinet appear clueless as to how to govern. Sadly, it is we, the people, who are at risk. It does not have to be this way. We corrected this criminal scourge before, and we must do so again.
Harris said the country cannot rely on the current administration to keep citizens and residents safe, as he noted the statistics over the months since the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration took office.
After some 23 murders since taking office 10 months ago, and with the last 16 of these murders occurring within the past 6 months, that the Prime Minister and Minister of National Security finally saw the need to address the nation today on the issue of violent crime and the unacceptably high murder rate currently plaguing our country. Regrettably, there was no hope, no inspiration in his speech. The measures hardly convince anyone that this inexperienced government understands the gravity of the crisis we face. Given their abject failure so far, we cannot rely on the due administration to keep us safe.
Harris said he and his party are willing to help the SKN Labour Party administration deal with what he termed the security crisis. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
Music's finest artists converge in Bastia from June 22nd to June 24th for the 25th hosting of the St. Kitts Music Festival. Hitting the festival main stage will be Skillibeng, Chronix, Coffee, Byron Messiah, Anthony B, Governor, Romaine Virgo, TJ, Valiant.
Them boy don't got no body.
Grandmasters, Collision Band, Small X Band, New Vibes Band International, Mr. Bagdal, Akayu Sweet, Preedy, Kess the Band, Ricardo Drew, Patrice Roberts, Skinny Fabulous, Nyla Blackman, Static. Erica Edwards, 313 Family, Gramps Morgan, Nitra B, Ear Supply, Dexter Daps, and Burner Boy. It's the 25th edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from June 22nd to June 24th at Warner Park. An experience like no other. Tickets are now available at stkittsmusicfestival.com.
It's beautiful. He took one look at you and the angels started singing.
Another wonderful day.
What would you say about staying here for a few months or like a year, just so that we can be together again and just live and love and laugh and have fun and breathe?
Why are you hiding out on a little Caribbean island, singing in a beach bar?
When I came here, I was at peace, and I never left.
This is the beating heart of Nevis. This is what grounds me, what feeds my soul. It's where I found myself.
I hope your life here will be full of joy. Love this island, my son. She will give you more than you can imagine.
Canada has accorded partial visa waiver to citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. A release from the Prime Minister's office on Tuesday said after sustained and meaningful dialogue between the Government of Canada and St. Kitts and Nevis, the visa requirement imposed on nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis in 2014 has been partially lifted, clearing the way for easier movement of people between the two countries. The policy applies to the following categories of nationals: those who have had a Canadian visa over the past 10 years and those who have a current non-immigrant U.S. visa. The above categories of nationals are required to apply online for an electronic travel authorization (ETA), for which a response is usually received the same day. This is the case with European nationals. First-time applicants or persons who do not have a U.S. or Canadian visa are still required to apply for a visa to enter Canada. Opposition leader Mark Brantley commended the Foreign Affairs Ministry for their work in persuading Canada to reverse the decision to impose visas on St. Kitts and Nevis passport holders in 2014. He listed Her Excellency Shirley Skerritt and Her Excellency Sherry Tross, their team, Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Denzel Douglas, and the government for getting the job done, and for, quote, bringing important relief to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, end quote. In 2014, Canada implemented visa requirement on St. Kitts and Nevis due to concerns about the issuance of passports and identity management practices within its Citizenship by Investment program. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline. Low-cost carrier JetBlue will commence air services from New York to St. Kitts and Nevis, establishing year-round connectivity to the destination. That announcement from Tourism Minister Marsha Henderson on Tuesday.
Today is undoubtedly a proud and exhilarating occasion for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I am deeply honored to serve as the Minister of Tourism during this remarkable period for our nation's history. The announcement of JetBlue's service scheduled to begin on November 2nd, 2023 has been eagerly awaited for many years, and it fills us with immense gratitude to witness our aspirations materialize before our eyes. I take this opportunity to thank the JetBlue executives for their unwavering confidence in our destination and for all the work that must have been invested to bring this to fruition. I also want to thank the team at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority and their support agencies and our valuable partners, such as the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority. Their dedicated commitment of time and resources over the past months have played a crucial role in ensuring the achievement of this positive outcome. The addition of JetBlue's 3 times weekly year-round service is indeed a significant one. This noteworthy route adds much needed airlift capacity to the destination through the establishment of a consistent connection from JFK, New York throughout all seasons. As a result of this new service, the destination now has year-round service from the UK, Miami, and now New York. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis is committed to working with international airline partners such as JetBlue to improve ease of travel and increase travel options to the destination. In a mere 10 months of taking office, we have lifted travel restrictions and developed key relationships to add regional and international airlift capacity. Our commitment aims to benefit all stakeholders and bolster economic sustainability to our nation. We will continue to collaborate with our partners, with our stakeholders, and the airline to ensure that the route is profitable with the goal of ultimately establishing daily service to the Federation. Today is undoubtedly a day to celebrate, and I extend my heartfelt congratulations to JetBlue and Team St. Kitts for forging this fruitful partnership.
Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew says the arrival of JetBlue marks a remarkable development in the country's tourism.
The prosperity of our federation relies heavily on international travel and tourism. The introduction of JetBlue's new route marks a significant milestone by establishing year-round connectivity to New York, a crucial market for our federation.
On Tuesday, JetBlue Airways announced the plans to continue expanding across the United States and the Caribbean, adding St. Kitts and Nevis and Belize to its destinations. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Music's finest artists converge in Bastia from June 22nd to June 24th for the 25th hosting of the St. Kitts Music Festival. Hitting the festival main stage will be Skillibeng, Chronix, Coffee, Byron Messiah, Anthony B, Governor, Romaine Virgo, TJ, Valiant.
Them boy don't got no bodies.
Grandmasters, Collision Band, Small X Band, New Vibes Band International, Mr. Bagdal, Aka You Sweet, Preedy, Guess the Band, Ricardo Drew, Patrice Roberts, Skinny Fabulous, Nyla Blackman, Status. Erica Edwards, 313 Family, Gramps Morgan, Nitra B, Ear Supply, Dexter Daps, and Burner Boy. It's the 25th edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from June 22nd to June 24th at Warner Park. An experience like no other. Tickets are now available at stkittsmusicfestival.com.
It's beautiful. He took one look at you and the angels started singing.
Another wonderful day.
What would you say about staying here for a few months or like a year, just so that we can be together again and just live and love and laugh and have fun and breathe?
Why are you hiding out on a little Caribbean island, singing in a beach bar?
When I came here, I was at peace, and I never left.
This is the beating heart of Nevis. This is what grounds me, what feeds my soul. It's where I found myself.
I hope your life here will be full of joy. Love this island, my son. She will give you more than you can imagine.
The extent of damage is becoming increasingly clear in Haiti after a weekend of torrential downpours and widespread flooding. At least 42 people are dead, dozens more injured, and thousands of homes destroyed. Dramatic scenes like this are taking place across the country as residents try to outrun the rising waters, often with little more than the clothes on their backs. And now we're learning at least 4 people were killed and 36 others injured following a 4.9 earthquake that struck Haiti earlier today. The Caribbean island nation is no stranger to hardship. It's already struggling with devastating gang violence and political instability while teetering on the brink of economic collapse. The UN says even before this weekend's rain, nearly half of Haiti's population was in need of humanitarian assistance. Gary Pierre is the founder and editor of the Haitian Times. He joins us live now. So, Gary, thank you so much for being with us. I wish we could talk about Haiti in a much more positive context, but here's the thing, just in terms of the situation on the ground, gangs approximately control about 80% of Port-au-Prince. Obviously, you have vigilantes that have sort of now gone up against the gangs and are attacking the gangs and essentially taking the law into their own hands. You also have flooding in various parts of the country. On top of that, an earthquake that struck this morning. How is Haiti coping with these back-to-back humanitarian disasters?
Thanks for having me, Zane. And I must say my heart goes out to my fellow Haitians in Haiti who've been suffering so much. But, you know, this is a result of chronic bad governance that's been decades in the making, and we're seeing the results right now. There is no functioning government for what it's worth. People are left on their own to survive, to defend for themselves. The state, the police can no longer provide that. And on top of that, you have these natural disasters. Well, we know Haiti's in the Caribbean. When it comes to May, June, July, August, these are hurricane season months. And so there's very little that the governments past and current have done to mitigate the disasters once they come. And so we need a governance restored in Haiti, and so that the state can provide the people with the help when they need it.
So what are you hearing in terms of what's happening in the ground? I mean, obviously, these particular floods have largely spared Port-au-Prince, not entirely, but largely. But there are still thousands of people, 13,000 people displaced as a result of these floods. What are you hearing from the ground in terms of what is the greatest need at this point? Food, drinking water, I imagine, shelter, especially for those people who no longer have a place to live?
The biggest need is shelter right now, because you have to remember, Zane, on top of these displaced people, there were already displaced people fleeing gang violence in the country, in the city, as you mentioned. And so right now, people need water, they need shelter. And we have reporters on the ground reporting as we speak on the conditions and what the needs are.
So in terms of humanitarian groups and aid agencies, what are they up against? Because yes, on the one hand, you're navigating humanitarian crises just in terms of the flooding, which a lot of these aid agencies are used to, but the environment is particularly unique. You've got gangs controlling several parts of Port-au-Prince. And then on top of that, you have these vigilantes who, as I mentioned, have taken the law into their own hands and who are now attacking and murdering suspected, this is key, suspected gang members. They don't even know whether they're gang members for sure, but if they suspect they're a gang member, they could end up dead at the hands of these vigilante groups. So what are the unique challenges for aid agencies operating in this kind of environment?
Well, first of all, many of these aid organizations stopped their work in Haiti, most notably Doctors Without Borders, because the situation has been so dangerous for them because they were operating in gang-controlled territory. And other aid organizations left for the most part or have had their work curtailed significantly. So right now, it's unclear what the government is doing to alleviate the problem, because the other challenge is the gang situation, because while you do have the vigilante, the Bois Calais movement, that's also dangerous because it could go into lawlessness, the likes we haven't seen in Haiti, where suspected people use that movement to settle scores, and then you have another mess in our hands. And so I think the police need to regain control, and also now to help facilitate the humanitarian aid that's desperately needed right now with this earthquake in the south and the rain across the country.
I remember seeing images of police officers protesting in the streets because they just didn't know what to do in terms of controlling these gangs. Acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry did make an urgent plea to the international community. He wanted outside international intervention, possibly led by Canada or the United States or the UN, to come and assist in terms of containing the gang violence in the country. Where are we on that? Because a lot of these countries were reluctant to lead any such group. Where are we on that, and where does that leave Haiti?
Well, where we are there is CARICOM is trying to broker some kind of movement, a deal with the Henri and the opposition. The primary opposition group is the Montana Accord. And so, CARICOM is not equipped to deal with Haiti. And the international community, the UN, has had a shaky pass in its interventions. And the U.S. right now just is not interested in going back to Haiti. And so while the international community trying to figure out how to help, I think what they can do concretely is to help the police regain control. Right now, the police department in Haiti is under arms embargo, while arms are flowing into the gang's hands. And so this is unfair. And they need material, they need all kinds of weapons to fight these gangs so that the country can have a chance to stabilize itself and get back on the way to functioning democracy, which, then there is no elected official in Haiti. So right now, Haiti is a democracy in name only. It is not a practicing or functioning democracy.
Yeah, and a lot of people have issues with the acting Prime Minister, Ariel Henry. I wish we had time to talk about that a little bit longer, but I am out of time. Gary Pierre, thank you so much for being with us.
A critical scenario is apparently unfolding right now in Cuba, nearly a quarter century after Congress passed the trade sanctions reform that allowed exports to Cuba. Despite the embargo, food exports have dropped more than 20%.
As CBS News Miami's Hank Tester reports, that has Cubans facing their worst economic crisis in decades.
Protests continue throughout Cuba. Yes, there are cries for freedom, but the underlying issue is far more basic. It's food, as a Cuban citizen told author and Cuba expert Dr. Andy Gomez.
You guys in Miami don't understand. This is more about vida, life, and being able to live free, being able to have food.
Cuba's rock-bottom economy and its inability to provide for the island's 11 million residents continues to promote strife. Gomez takes it a step further.
If we were to lift the embargo tomorrow, Cuba is far from being able to implement a wide-open market.
That said, a dire indicator there's not much hope anytime soon for the average Cuban citizen scrambling daily to make it through life. And remember, a hefty portion of food comes from the United States. The headline, Cuban government-controlled food purchases and imported from the U.S. are down 21%.
They're not importing as much overall because they don't have money.
In 2021, U.S. to Cuba commodity exports, such as chicken, $28.5 million worth. By 2022, down to $26 million, and in the 12-month period ending March of 2023, almost $20.5 million. And on the island, cash is tight these days. Tourism sputtering, fuel is scarce, remittances impacted by the U.S. economy. And then
the logistics to get, let's say, chicken from the port of Havana to the middle of Cuba with poor railroad system, with poor trucking system, with poor roads.
Cuba used to be a major producer of coffee. Now they have to import from the U.S.
One, incredible mismanagement. Two, state involvement, which makes it incredibly inefficient. Three, weather. The areas where the plantations are have just gotten pummeled every year.
One bright light, off-island websites where a wider variety of allowed goods can be sent to Cuba, if you have the money or financial support, and that usually comes from remittances from families outside of the island.
In terms of variety of product outside of the agricultural commodities, so the food products, healthcare products, and when I'm saying healthcare products, those are generally personal care products. Those numbers have increased remarkably.
Cuba's never been able to feed itself. It currently imports 60 to 80% of the food it consumes. The internet is one of the few places where Cubans can find commodities such as soap or toilet paper. I'm Hank Tester, CBS News, Miami.
We start in Ukraine, where thousands of people have been forced to leave their homes in the south because of flooding caused by the damage to a dam in the Dnipro River. President Zelensky said 80 towns and villages may be flooded after this attack, which he blames on Russia. Water is surging down the river, is said to be posing a catastrophic flooding risk to the city of Kherson. Russia has denied destroying the dam, which is in territory under its control, instead blaming Ukrainian shelling. John Donison has the latest.
Breached, the Nova Kakhovka Dam, now almost unrecognizable. Water, seemingly the latest weapon in the war in Ukraine. And it's downstream on the Dnipro River where the damage has been done. In Ukrainian-controlled territory to the west, officials say 17,000 people need to flee their homes, another 25,000 in the Russian-occupied east. In Kherson, under Ukrainian control, there are fears the flooding could become catastrophic, and it's not the only worry. It's dangerous, says Catalina. She's not wrong. Russia pulled out of this city last year, but its forces are not far away.
Fast.
The dam was under Russian control, but each side is blaming the other for the apparent attack.
Tonight, the Kyiv regime committed another terrorist crime. The Kakhovka hydroelectric dam was blown up, which led to the flooding of significant territories.
The whole world will know about this Russian war crime, the crime of genocide. Such deliberate acts by the Russian occupiers of the dam and other structures of the Kakhovka hydro power plant is an environmental bomb of mass destruction.
So what is the significance of the Nova Kakhovka Dam? First, it supplies water to vast swathes of agricultural land, including in Crimea. But the reservoir behind it also provides water to cool the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Both areas are under Russian control. It looks like a natural disaster, but this was man-made. Whoever did this knew that the consequences would be massive, but they were prepared to do it anyway. John Donison, BBC News.
I talked to Alexander Gillespie about some of these developments. He's Professor of International Law at the University of Waikato in New Zealand. I asked him about the difficulty in terms of trying to identify who is behind this attack on the dam.
I think we're looking at a unique moment in history because what we may be seeing is the commission of a war crime. It's something that we used to see originally in many earlier centuries, but it's been made illegal since the 1970s. There will be the question of who did it, but something's definitely changing out there right now.
And therefore, with this war in Ukraine, the conflict in Ukraine, the finger's often pointed at Russia for many of the crimes taking place. Whilst the conflict is in motion, of course, it presents very huge difficulties in terms of the legalities of this going forward, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, right now, everything's just alleged, but we'll have to start collecting evidence. But what you have fundamentally is an act which is disproportionate and indiscriminate, of which the civilians will bear the brunt of it. It may also be an environmental crime because it's widespread, severe and long-lasting. But right now it's about getting the evidence. But you are seeing something unique because this is a threshold that has not been crossed so far this century.
In terms of the international bodies that will be investigating this, trying to find out what really happened, who is responsible, talk us through that.
So far, the International Criminal Court has got one charge against the Russian administration, and that's with regards to the illegal deportation of children. It's likely that they will add more charges to the docket, and those could have been around the indiscriminate bombing of Ukrainian cities. But if this is linked to the Russian administration, then it's likely that this act could be added as a potential war crime. It's clearly a crime from the law from 1977, but the problem is that Russia withdrew its signature from a convention in 2019, and they would argue it doesn't apply to them. But many would suggest otherwise, that it's now customary not to do such kind of disproportionate and indiscriminate warfare.
Is it possible to gather the evidence required to prove beyond reasonable doubt who is responsible in these kind of circumstances?
It will be very difficult, and it won't just be physical evidence, there'll also be a lot of intelligence as well. But to be honest, there's a large gap between the theory of whether this is a war crime and whether there'll ultimately be accountability for this crime as well. Because you may find that the discussion about war crimes ends up being part of the peace process or treaty that eventually, hopefully, ends this conflict.
Professor Alexander Gillespie, we appreciate your expertise on this. Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, let's now connect with our diplomatic correspondent who is in Kyiv, Paul Adams. Good morning, Paul. So talk us through what are the top priorities today. Is it still mainly about evacuation, those who are at risk?
Yeah, I think it is. I think there are some suggestions that up close to the dam, around the town of Novokakhovka on the Russian-occupied side, the floodwaters may gradually be subsiding. That was the town that really was completely inundated immediately after the dam broke early yesterday morning. And we're seeing this enormous reservoir, this huge, the largest reservoir in the country, rapidly emptying. But all of that floodwater is heading downstream, down along the Dnipro River. Satellite images show extensive flooding on both sides, and that involves a host of small communities along the riverbank. And then you get down to Kherson, further downstream, a large city retaken by the Ukrainians in the autumn of last year, in November of last year. There, it seems as though the floodwaters may still be rising, and we're seeing emergency services still evacuating people from their homes, going around flooded streets in boats trying to find who's still there, and having to deal with the added risk of shelling from across the river from Russian forces, which is making the rescue operation even more precarious. On the other side, in the Russian-controlled territory, we're getting reports of some villages where the water is up at roof level and people have had to spend the night on their roofs waiting to be evacuated. Another issue which is preoccupying the government here is drinking water, because the Dnipro River is a huge source of water for many, many people in eastern and southern Ukraine. And the government is addressing the problem of how to sustain drinking water supplies, not just along the river, those communities, but in some towns and cities further afield. So there are a host of problems that have been created by the destruction of the dam. And I think we're still going to see in the course of the day the true scope of this problem unfolding.
Hundreds of families fleeing conflict in Sudan are seeking safety in the Central African Republic, even as the violence continues to rage on in the region. Meanwhile, the UNHCR and the World Food Programme are attempting to build shelters, latrine and provide water and food for up to 14,000 refugees who have arrived in CAR. So these people will be quickly relocated, and we are running out of time so that the rain doesn't find them here in Amdafok. Otherwise, it will be difficult. The UNHCR said emergency teams were identifying and referring people with specific needs for protection, counseling or medical assistance. The needs are many for food, shelter and also water, and we are trying to provide water with what we can find locally. This means we are using hose carts that transport 400-litre tanks of water. One of the refugees, Pastor Ismail Ibrahim Mekas Toto, said he and other family fled the fighting and were just looking for a good place with excellent security.
We came here, we're looking for the good place. If we find the good place, the safe place, yeah, we will stay in. And also, we don't know that the time of the war is stopped. So that's why we left. We don't know the time this stop. It's very, very hard. Fighting.
Several emergency missions have taken place despite challenges in reaching the area due to its remoteness and the fragile security situation.
The senior men's national team is in Miami preparing for their participation in the CONCACAF Gold Cup preliminary round when they face Curaçao in the first match on the 16th of June in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. St. Kitts and Nevis finished top of the table in Group B, League C of the CONCACAF Nations League, and by virtue has qualified for the crucial stage of Gold Cup qualification. If the Sugar Boys defeat Curaçao, they will face either French Guiana or Dutch St. Martin in the next round to qualify for the Gold Cup. St. Kitts and Nevis has never qualified for the CONCACAF Gold Cup, so this would be a major feat in the Federation's football history. The SKNFA released a provisional squad list on Monday, which is not the final team list. Based on CONCACAF rules, the final squad list cannot be released before a certain date. The final list will be out closer to the start of the preliminary round. Should the Sugar Boys be successful in qualifying for the Gold Cup, they will compete in Group A, which features the USA, Jamaica, and Nicaragua.